Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Grossman. For those of you I have not met yet, I direct career services for the Marxe School of Public and International Affairs at Baruch. I'm with my colleague Samantha Pardo from Marxe Career Services. We have Jenny Furlong, who directs career services at the Graduate Center. And we are here with the New York State Senate Fellowship. I'm going to pass it over to Nick Parrella, who's going to tell us all about this terrific opportunity. Take it away, Nick.
Suzanne, thank you so much for that warm welcome. And thank you to all the students who've taken some time out of their busy schedules to join with us today. So we have an opportunity here at the New York State Senate in Albany, New York, and it's called our Graduate Senate Fellowship Program. And this is for students who plan to be graduating, in May this year, or if you're going to be, in the summertime. The program starts in mid-September, and it's a 9-month program. So it runs until June of about 2026, so about the third week in June. So you're with us for about 9 months. It is an Albany-based fellowship. So anyone selected to the program would need to move to the Albany, New York area. The cost of living up here is cheaper than it is in New York City. And I have not run into fellows having issues finding places to live here. And even if you're not currently scheduled to graduate with your graduate degree this May, if you've joined us and you're in a 26 cohort, that's great too. Don't forget about us for next year. But wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the program and getting an opportunity. And I believe I do have screen sharing capabilities here, Suzanne. So I am going to try and, actually I'm getting a message that says sharing is not turned on, but I'll send the request. Let's see if that
Try
happens.
try again. Maybe
Okay.
should work.
Yep. Let's see here. So I am, looks like I'm gonna have to call it up first and then try. So let's see. Okay, so hopefully on your screen you do see a brochure. And this brochure tells you a little bit about the program and the various fellowships lines that we have. So we have 4 different fellowship lines, and I'll talk a little bit about each of them so you can kind of get a better sense for ones that you might be interested in. So we do have what's known as our legislative fellows, and we typically have about 13 to 15 of those each year. The legislative fellows, the assignment is to an actual elected member of the New York State Senate. We have 63 members in the New York State Senate, and I would say roughly about half of those members ask every year to host a Senate fellow. So in the legislative fellows realm, you would be performing in-depth policy research, meeting with stakeholders, and that's constituents and interest groups and advocates that come to Albany to lobby for their particular pieces of legislation that they're very interested in. Our legislative fellows, again, they attend legislative sessions. Some of them assist with helping in drafting of legislation, or at least doing the research to kind of, put that together. But also with the policy side and a legislative fellowship, you're going to see a little bit of the constituency side too. So you get a chance to see how these members represent their constituencies. And we are, again, since this is a Senate-wide fellowship, we work with both conferences in the Senate. So the New York State Senate has 2 conferences. There's a majority conference, which is the Democratic Party currently, and the minority conference is the Republican conference. We work with, as I said, both conferences, so you could be placed in either of the conference offices, depending upon, again, a couple things. One, who requests to host a fellow, and then 2, which we'll get into when I show you the application. We do try to match up fellows in areas of interest that they have in policy. So our legislative fellows, again, really getting to see the view of working with one particular member. The other three fellowship lines that we have, the Richard J. Roth Journalism Fellows, the Richard A. Wiebe Public Service Fellow, and the James Begain Fellowship in Finance, those are all fellowships where there's different placements, but it's all part of the majority conference. So, and there are one fellowship each for each of those three. So there's one Roth Fellow every year, one Wiebe Fellow, one Begain. Many moons ago, I was the Roth Fellow. I did the Senate Fellowship Program in 2002, 2003. So it was over 20 years ago now for me. But I participated in the Roth Fellowship and was with the Majority Press Office. And there, again, you're kind of doing things on the communication end, right? So you're tracking the news all day. You are, helping with press conferences that get set up. You are writing talking points, those kinds of things. The Wiebe Public Service Fellowship, that placement is to the Majority Council Program Office. Typically there, the office tends to like those who have a legal background, although I have seen some with public policy backgrounds be selected for that fellowship. In the council program office, again, you're working for an entire conference, and this is the majority conference. So the Democratic Party has 41 out of the 63 seats in the New York State Senate. So the work that you're doing is on behalf of a conference rather than an individual member, as you might in the Legislative Fellows Program. In the Wiebe Fellowship, typically you are assigned to work with a team in a given policy area. So that could, and it's dependent upon the need that the office has. So, it could be anything from tax to health policy, transportation, environmental conservation. I mean, there's just so many different policy areas, but it owes to, the need at the time that you're there. The Begain Fellowship in Finance, that placement is to the Majority Finance Committee. And there you learn all about the budget making process, which we are currently in almost in high gear with. The budget is due to be adopted constitutionally, state constitution, by April 1st every year. And the negotiations will be picking up in earnest within the next couple of weeks to try and meet that deadline. In the Begain Fellowship, you will see how the budget gets put together. So that is the revenue side, the expenditure side, and all of the negotiations that kind of go into each of the various policy areas. Medicaid and education obviously are two of the biggest portions of New York State's budget. I am hearing that this year, the total budget is probably going to be somewhere around $250 billion, and that's billion with a B, to really run the state. Everything that you see, from the roads and the bridges that you drive on to the parks that maybe you visit on weekends to do hiking and biking if you're a nature enthusiast and you like that, to healthcare, to education, both higher ed and K through 12, commerce, economic development. I mean, you name it. There was a stat many years ago that had said if New York State was its own country, they would have the 9th largest operating budget in the entire world. So there is a lot going on here in New York State. And this fellowship is, an opportunity for people who are thinking about a career in public service, right? You're thinking, what am I going to do after CUNY? I'm graduating in May. This is a chance to kind of see that state government operate up close and in person. We do offer a $50,000 stipend that is paid out in biweekly installments throughout the duration of the program from September through the following June. So, you are earning while you're learning, and, 50,000 is a nice stipend for those 9 months. Just taking a little bit of a look here. Actually, I want to go back up. You can kind of see the timeline. So currently, the application period we are in, this year's application deadline is going to be May 2nd. So you have just about 2 months if you're considering joining us to put together, your application. We conduct interviews throughout the month of May and June. We usually start somewhere around mid-May. I like to give students the opportunity to finish their final exams and the final papers that they need to do before doing an interview. So we're usually around the second or third week of May when we start those. Those interviews for the last 5 years have been virtual. We use Microsoft Teams. However, if you are going to apply and you would like to come up to Albany for an in-person interview, we can certainly make arrangements for that. We do those interviews, like I said, through May and June. Usually have selections by the end of June, first week of July. And then the invitations go out, and that gives the fellows around 2 months to settle everything they need to do where they are, and then find accommodations in the Albany area to start the program in mid-September. We start out our program with about a week and a half of orientation in September. So that's where, we bring in guest speakers, and we kind of show you a little bit about, the Senate and how it operates. You'll meet with our bill drafting commission. You'll get a chance to meet with staff from the various offices, who, all work together to make the things go around here. And we do that. And then we get you into your office placements, usually by that last week in September. And then you're off and running, learning about, your particular placement and, getting the daily tasks and responsibilities there. In terms of application materials, we have this how to apply section here. So you will fill out an application. You'll send us your official school transcripts from both graduate and undergraduate institutions. 1-page resume, 3 confidential letters of recommendation from persons who are familiar with your academic abilities and professional aptitude. And those could be a mix of professors, and maybe you've had some supervisors and some of the maybe jobs you've had over the course of time. And you think that if you think those people would write you a great letter of recommendation, you can certainly mix in, some professional acquaintances that you have along with professors. A writing sample of original graduate level coursework. We say 6 to 8 pages. It can be a little longer than that. This is something that you don't have to reinvent the wheel for. So it should be, a paper that you've submitted for one of your graduate level courses that showcases your ability, your analysis ability, your writing comprehension for sure. I always tell students to make sure it is a paper that you got a good grade on and something that you are especially proud of. And then we do sort of this exercise where you write a single page policy memo and then a single page rebuttal to that policy memo. So they're 1 page each. You can either choose a policy that has already been enacted, state or federal, that you want to analyze, or you can come up with something on your own. Look at it as an assignment. There ought to be a law. What we'd like you to do in the first page in the proposal is to tell us again, giving us some background about the policy and why it is important, right? Why has it been enacted? What are the benefits? Or if it's something you're choosing, why should we enact it, right? What are the reasons and the benefits that are going to accrue from this policy being enacted? And then in the rebuttal, you're going to turn around and look at it from the other perspective and say, okay, well, there may be some unintended consequences to this policy, or there may be some negative outcomes, and here they are. The reason we ask students to do that is because in many ways, it is a lot of what you're going to be confronted with here when you're working in your offices. There are many sides to a given issue. And most of you are going to see all of those, while you're here, because you could be taking a meeting with a group that is really advocating for this particular piece of legislation in the morning. And they're going to give you all the materials and the reasons why they think it's a good idea. And then in the afternoon, you're going to have a group or citizens that are going to come in, and they are going to be diametrically opposed to this particular piece of legislation. They're going to be telling you all the reasons why you shouldn't and why your senator should vote no, right? And fellows really need to be able to grapple with the different sides of issues, the pros and the cons. I used to say there were two sides. Now it's, so multidimensional. There could be 3, 4, and 5 sides to a different issue, depending upon the politics and depending upon what's feasible from a government standpoint and what, you know, the members actually, want to do in terms of a policy. And so being able to have that skill of seeing many different viewpoints, I think, is one of the hallmarks of being in a fellowship program like this. You do need to be able to see that because, your members are typically generalists. A lot of them don't specialize in all of these various issues. And so, they're going to need assistance. When a bill comes up for a vote on the floor, they only get one chance at this, right? It's either yay or nay. So, they have to be informed to the most important extent possible. And fellows really play a role in that. And so, being able to do that kind of deep dive into various perspectives, I think is really important. And then last, but most certainly not least, a single page personal statement that tells us all about you, right? What are you hoping to get out of this fellowship? Why are you applying? What are your interests, right? What are you interested in terms of policy areas? I'm going to go and show you the application in a second here of the various policies that you can choose from. We do ask our fellows candidates to choose some policies that they'd be interested in. And our goal is to, try and align your experience with some of the things that you're interested in. It's never 100% guaranteed, but we do try and get, in an office where you're going to be seeing the policies that, you said you were interested in. So that is kind of like an informational brochure. What I will do now I just switched screens. Did that go to the application? It looks like a fillable PDF. Yes?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I didn't even have to stop share. So here, and I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Hopefully that helps. Basic information up at the top to fill in. Here, you can choose the fellowships that you're interested in. And if you're interested in all 4, you can just kind of check all the boxes. The other thing that's nice is if you print this out, you're able to kind of go in there and you can number them in order, 1 through 4. Everyone is considered for a legislative fellowship. And so if you also put some other ones down there, we typically will have staff helping to interview who are from those particular central staff offices. Here's where the preferred policy areas where I talked about. We have a list of current standing committees, which is right here. And we have literally everything from A to W, aging and women's issues and everything in between. So if there are things on here that, you see, we ask that you put, your 3 preferred areas up here in the policy area boxes. So if you tell me you're interested in local government, or you could be interested in energy and telecommunications, right? That kind of helps us if you're selected to try and know, okay, where might we place you? And also, again, it depends upon which offices request to host a fellow as well. So we do try to match fellows up with their interest there. And in your personal statement too, you can tell us some of the areas or maybe some of your experiences and some policy areas that you would be interested in learning more about, if you're chosen up for the fellowship. We do have an application checklist at the bottom. So as you are going through and collecting all of your materials, you can just do a quick little check off, when you have something there and you're all set. I find that's a nice little handy guide for folks as they're getting their application materials together. So I will stop talking now and feel free to open up the floor to any questions that anybody has about the application process, or the program more generally.
Feel free to raise your hand or unmute or put in the chat a question.
Hi, Hello, if I may ask a couple. I've got a couple of questions here. My name is Thomas Wool. Um,
Thomas?
uh, First of all, just like a logistical question about the application regarding the requirement of single page. Are there any more specifications about that? Is it like Times New Roman 12 font, double space, single space, or just like however it fits on one page?
Are you talking about for the policy proposal and rebuttal or the resume or?
Um, anywhere any
Yeah,
of them where it says single page, basically.
yeah. The resume, if you need to go over onto a second page, that's totally fine. I totally understand that people may have more experiences than they can fit on a page, so that's fine. In terms of the policy memo and the policy rebuttal, yeah, single page on that. Single space is fine. Whatever you need to do to get it down to a single page. Yeah. So you can, if you got to go smaller font, that's fine as well.
And I was just a detail about the timeline. How are legislative fellows matched with individual senators? Can you talk a little more about that? And then are the placements made during the selection process or during the orientation?
Yep. So first question is we try to match up fellows with their policy area of interest that they put down in their application. And also based upon your experiences too. Like if you tell me you're really interested in transportation policy, I will try to get you, if that's your first choice, I try to get you with somebody who works in that area. That may be the chair of the transportation committee, which would be ultimate, right? But it also depends upon which offices request a host because not all 63 of our Senate offices do that, like I said, but usually about half. I'm usually somewhere in the low 30s of who send in requests to host. So it's we I think we do a fairly decent job of matching up. The other thing I will say is even those three policy areas where you're placed, that may not be the only thing you're looking at because each of the senators are typically on 4 or 5 different standing committees. So wherever you're assigned, you'll get to see a little bit of the policy areas of interest to that senator. So somebody could be the chair of the transportation committee, but they may also be on energy and telecommunications, social services, higher ed, right? So you get to see a little bit of each, kind of when you're in that office. And
If I
then, yeah, second part, the announcements for where you are placed are made during orientation.
September.
Yep. So those are made during the mid-September orientation, and we have those by the time orientation's done, we've got the placements for you, and we hand those out before we send you into the offices. Yeah.
If I may ask one more, I know there's some in the chat too. If I may ask one more, and then I'll mute again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so can you speak to the outlook for transitioning for someone who's after the 9 months, if selected, of course, wanting to transition into working in state government with the legislative branch or in agencies or whatever? What's the outlook for finding a job transitioning into um, something more full-time or something longer term after the 9 months?
Yeah. Always variable. It is our hope, and many times I do have fellows who wind up staying on either in their placement offices or going somewhere else in state government. I think from last year's cohort, I have 4 of the 12 who are still with us. So it's about 1/3. It's never a guarantee. It kind of owes to you're paid out of student programs budget through the fellowship. Once that fellowship is over, if the office is going to take you on, they then need to pay for it out of their own staff budget. And so I unfortunately don't have access to those figures each year, but it would be nice if I did. But yeah, there are opportunities. There's also the state assembly. I've had fellows who have stayed here in the Senate. I've had fellows who've gone to work in the assembly. I've had fellows who've gone to work in the governor's office, the executive branch agencies that you mentioned. I even have a fellow who's now an administrative law judge. He had a legal background. He's been an administrative law judge for a number of years here in Albany. And some have gone back to New York City. Some have gone to DC. So some have gone into the world of advocacy and lobbying. So it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mix for sure. But I always say, if you take initiative, you showcase your talents and make yourself indispensable, people usually notice that around here. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
There's a question in the chat about international students being able to apply. Could you address that, Nick?
Yep. So in terms of international students, our eligibility requirements are that a student needs to be able to provide proof of eligibility to work in the United States for the duration of the fellowship. So, and unfortunately, the Senate does not sponsor work visas.
So basically, if somebody has OPT for that full 9-month period from September through May as an
June.
international student, oh, sorry, through June.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yep.
Is it end of June or June 1st?
I always tell, we had a student a few years ago who did it on an OPT. I believe he got his OPT in August. So he was covered for the 1 year from August to August. But they would need to be able to have that OPT from September of 2025 through the end of June 2026. I always say the end of June just to be on the safe side. The program will, like this year's program ends June 18th. Next year's will probably be somewhere around there, but I always tell students, if you're going to get the OPT, make sure you get it through the end of June because that would cover you then. So
Great. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go
Hello.
ahead.
Um, is there age requirement for the fellowship?
no, no age requirement. The only requirement is that you need to have completed your graduate level coursework and have your degree conferred on you by the time the fellowship program starts in mid-September. So I've had, students who, will go the usual graduation route of, May, of a given year. But I'm starting to see more and more students now completing their degrees like in July and August. So even if you have your degree, your master's degree completed by August of this year, and the degree is conferred upon you, then you would still be, able to apply as long as, you've finished the degree.
The reason why I asked is I'm older, not I went back to school later on. So I graduated in 2023. And with my
So you graduated with your master's in 2023.
right in corporate communication. So that's why I asked the question, because I'm not like the typical younger person, but I graduate later on and I'm looking to do something different. So I'm unemployed right now, and I always had an interest in this line of work, and I saw it and I was interested. I just wanted to know like the age requirement and if it's actual recent graduates, because I graduated back in 2023, but you answered that question.
Right. Yeah. So you're about 2 years out. We have in the past considered applicants who, graduated about a year earlier, maybe two. But it's typically a fellowship program for those who are recently graduated. But I mean, if you were, still interested in applying and you're 2 years out, I think we would at least consider it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There is a question in the chat about GPA requirements. Is there one?
So it's not listed there, but 3.0. I mean, 3.0 or better.
Is that because you're just, yeah, I guess because it's not listed. So I'm just wondering, like, how does this, if a student's like on the cusp of 3.0?
Yeah, again, GPA is not everything. We would, if they're on the cusp, you're saying like they're 2.95, something like that. I would still encourage them to apply because it's going to be, we're going to take a look at the application as a whole, right? We're going to take a look at your writing samples. We're going to take a look at your letters of recommendation, right? Take a look at your resume, personal statement, and, kind of take everything into account.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Here's your chance. And as
And while we're in, I will put my contact information in to the chat room as well. I'll put my phone number and email. If students are, have questions as they're working their way through the application, uh, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Hopefully that came through there.
I have a question.
Yes.
How much weight is placed on the undergraduate transcript versus the graduate transcript? Like in the case where the two are drastically different.
Yeah. Yeah, really, I would place more emphasis on the graduate one. We just like to see, from the undergraduate perspective, where did you go? What were some of the classes you were taking? Things of that nature. But I personally put more emphasis on what you've done in graduate school because I realize, graduate school for some people can be 2, 3, 4 years before you get that, and it is, that's a sea change between when you were an undergraduate, and you never really know, and it's something that couldn't be accounted for. Maybe a student had an issue during undergrad that contributed to them having a lower GPA, but they righted the ship, right? And now in graduate school, they're doing well. And so I would say, from our perspective, the graduate level one, I think, carries more weight.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And was that Jessica?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't see on my screen there anybody, but
For the letters of recommendation, I know you said they don't all have to be academic, right? It could be a combination of academic and professional. Are those going straight to you, or is the student collecting them?
yeah, so really either way, I give the student, leeway. If the recommender would like to send it directly to me, that is fine. The one thing I do ask is that the recommenders put their letters on letterhead. So if that's the school's letterhead, great. If it is like a business, right, or an organization, if they could put it on an organizational letterhead, that would be great too, to be able to see that. Otherwise, I've had students who like to do it the old-fashioned way, collect all their application materials, get the letters of recommendation in the sealed envelopes, and then put everything in one envelope and mail it off to us. That works too. Or in recent years, I've seen students who will make PDFs of all of their different application materials and then send either individual PDFs that we can print out, or make it one big PDF, and then we can print out all the application materials there. So it's really whatever is easiest for the student to get the materials to us.
So you don't have a preference of like one giant PDF versus like individual ones?
If I had to say a preference, I'd say one giant PDF, because then I can just
Okay.
print everything out at once. And I can give you can either send it to me, or I'm going to put on our application, you'll see we do have an email, students@nysenate.gov. You can also send them there. Or your recommenders, if they're emailing their recommendation letters, they can send them to the students@nysenate.gov email address.
Great. Any other questions? And remind us what the deadline is. You said May, was it 2nd or 3rd?
May 2nd. Correct.
May
Yeah, that's a Friday this year. So Friday, May 2nd. So I'll put that in the chat. Well,
So almost a little less than 2 months
correct.
to work on this application. Should be plenty of time for anybody interested.
Yeah.
Um,
And we are available, like I said, for anyone who has questions as they're working through.
we do have a current Baruch Marxe graduate who is fellow in the program right now. And she might be, I know it's a busy season right now, but if somebody wants to talk to her, I can certainly reach out.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yes, and if anyone would like to reach out to me after this phone call to try and get in touch with Catherine, Catherine Davis, is her name. I'm happy to also make that introduction as well as Suzanne can too, but certainly yes.
Marcia, you put a question in the chat about completing the program. You might have joined a little bit later, but yes, you need to have completed your master's degree by the time the program starts, which is in the middle of early September. Otherwise, you're looking at applying for the next cycle. All right, so I think we'll end it here. Thanks so much, Nick Parrella from the New York State Senate Fellowship for joining us today, and we look forward, Nick, to sending applicants your way from CUNY, various CUNY schools, including Baruch.
Suzanne, thank you again, and Jenny and Samantha, thank you both. It was great seeing you all again, and thank you to the students for again taking some time out of your schedules. I wish you all the best of luck in the rest of this spring semester. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But yeah, we would love to see some great CUNY grads, continue in Catherine's footsteps up here. So.
All right, thanks. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.